Some stories start out like a fairy tale. A young, all-American girl gets swept off her feet by this wealthy, older, incredibly charismatic doctor. But this fairy tale, it ends with a brutal murder on the side of a highway. Okay, let's get right into this. And that quote right there, it pretty much sums up the entire tragic story of Donna and Dr. Gulam Munda. It's a wild tale of romance, dependency, and, in the end, a fatal betrayal that would just tear apart this meticulously crafted image of perfection. So let's start at the very beginning with our central couple. In their small Pennsylvania town, Donna and Gulam were the absolute talk of the town, this May-December romance that, on the surface, seemed to defy all the local gossip. And this is really at the heart of why the whole town was so fascinated with them. I mean, look at the contrast. It was your classic older man, younger woman story, but with this cultural twist that made it even juicier. On one side, you've got Donna Smouse, she's 19, a bubbly high school cheerleader turned secretary, and on the other, Dr. Gulam Munda, a super successful urologist in his 40s, charming, outgoing, and from India. Their meeting was basically instant town gossip. And that number right there, 26, that was the real reason everyone was talking. Friends said Donna was actually hesitant at first because of the huge age gap. I mean, people were whispering that she was looking for a father figure or, worse, that she was a gold digger. But Gulam, he was persistent. And here's how he won her, and just as importantly, her family over. Gulam's generosity wasn't just generous, it was legendary. He bought her a DeLorean. Yes, a DeLorean. He paid for her to get 3 college degrees. The guy was famous for carrying these huge wads of cash, peeling off $100 bills just to pay for a cup of coffee. This public image of a kind, almost saintly benefactor, it silenced most of the critics pretty fast. So, the public saw this doting husband and a blissfully happy wife. But you know how it goes. That was only half the story. As we start to peel back the layers, a much, much darker picture starts to come into focus. And here you can really see the huge difference between what people thought and what was actually going on. While everyone saw a romantic couple, sources say Gulam was actually pretty dominant and controlling. While they seemed happily married, there were constant whispers about his affairs. And despite that lavish lifestyle, Gulam worked all the time, leaving Donna feeling incredibly lonely and isolated. That feeling was just made worse by the fact that they couldn't have children. So you've got this loneliness building up, and then a devastating personal tragedy strikes. And that's when Donna's life really starts to spiral into a place she would never truly come back from. Okay, so let's walk through how this all happened. In 1998, her dad, who she was super close to, just dies suddenly. And she shatters. She sinks into this deep depression, which then starts showing up as this severe, debilitating back pain. Now, she's a nurse anesthetist, so she has access to some powerful drugs. And she starts stealing them to numb everything. The physical pain, the emotional pain. Of course, that just spirals into a full-blown addiction, and eventually she gets arrested and convicted. And just to be clear, we're not talking about some casual thing here. Fentanyl is an incredibly powerful drug, 100 times more potent than morphine. For Donna, it was the perfect way to just erase the pain from losing her dad and that constant aching loneliness of her marriage. Gulam actually stood by her through the arrest. He even pleaded with the judge for her. He helped get her into rehab. But it was in rehab, at her absolute most vulnerable, that she found a new kind of relief, a new and way more destructive attachment. And that's where she meets Damian Bradford, a 22-year-old self-described drug dealer whose street name, get this, was Chaos, a name that would turn out to be chillingly prophetic for absolutely everyone involved. And what's so wild is this pattern you see in her relationships. It's like her need for connection, for someone to fill that void, was so intense that she just completely flipped the dynamic. She goes from a man 26 years older who was her sugar daddy to a guy 22 years younger for whom she becomes the sugar mama, giving him upwards of $8,000 a month for his rent, his car, his everything. A forensic psychologist once said something that just hits the nail on the head here. Rehab can be this really emotionally charged place where vulnerable people form these super intense and often really unhealthy bonds. Donna and Damian connected over their addiction, and they created this bond that her husband could never ever break into. This quote really gets to the heart of why these rehab romances can be so intense and so dangerous. And this new super toxic relationship, It was basically setting the stage for the final, awful act. And of course, it all goes down on a day that totally lived up to its reputation, Friday, May 13th, 2005. So here's the story that Donna tells the cops at first. She, Gulam, and her mom are driving to Ohio, and they pull over. All of a sudden, a man in a hoodie comes up to the car, demands Dr. Munda's wallet, and after he hands it over, the guy just shoots him in the head and speeds off. It looked like just a random, tragic robbery. But come on. Right away, the cops have this one huge, glaring question. Gulam was famous for carrying cash, so why would you shoot him after you already have the wallet? And even weirder, why would you execute your victim but leave his wife and his mother-in-law, two eyewitnesses, totally unharmed? It just didn't add up. And that one question, it was like the loose thread on a sweater. Once they pulled it, Donna's entire story just completely unraveled, leading to this stunning courtroom drama that exposed the most shocking betrayal of all. And man, did the lie fall apart fast. First, Damian's own fiancé goes to the police and tells them all about the affair. Then they search his apartment and find bloody towels and a big stack of $50 bills. The final nails in the coffin? Cell phone data that just completely destroyed his alibi, putting him right on the turnpike at the exact time of the murder. Oh, and the cops learned it was Donna, not Gulam, who had his wallet just moments before the shooting. So Damian's facing life, maybe even the death penalty. His whole game plan depends on Donna. But then he finds out she's going to plead the fifth on the stand. Basically, she's throwing him to the wolves. He realizes he's been totally used and left out to dry. So what does he do? In exchange for a lighter sentence, Damian flips. So Damian gets on the stand and he just spills everything. He describes how Donna found out Gulam is planning to divorce her. The prosecutor asked what Gulam had said, and Damian testified. He said, "I was going to leave her." And right at that moment in the courtroom, Donna just has this visceral, physical reaction like she'd been punched, and she starts sobbing uncontrollably. That right there, that was the motive, the final trigger. And it all came down to money. It's the classic motive, right? After Gulam found out about the affair, he offered Donna a $1 million divorce settlement. But Donna knew her husband's will and his life insurance policies were worth way, way more. He was worth more to her dead than alive. Money she was already using to keep her young lover, Damian, on a very, very expensive leash. So after this trial that had everyone talking, the jury just didn't buy the whole grieving widow act. They found Donna Munda guilty of orchestrating a murder for hire. The sentence was a life in prison, no chance of parole. As for Damian, the triggerman who claimed he was manipulated by a woman nearly twice his age, he got 17.5 years. So that leaves us with the big, haunting question at the end of all this. Was Donna Munda this cold, calculating black widow who just manipulated men to get whatever she wanted? Or was she a broken person, so consumed by grief and addiction and this desperate need to be attached to someone that she became a victim of her own terrible, catastrophic choices? It's a question that people are still debating to this day.